Okay, we're alive, and tonight we're talking about the. I can't even remember now what we're talking about.
The wisdom.
The
beginning of wisdom
Thank
is the
you.
fear of God.
Okay. It's been a whole night, and I'm totally lost now in my thoughts. So, the fear of God is the beginning of wisdom, and I was gonna say it a little more pithy than that. Forget it. That's what it is. The fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. So it's been a couple of weeks since we have done Bible study live, but we're starting back up today in Job. And so now we're at the end of Job, and we have this lesson and maybe two more after this. They're really good. I've been looking forward the whole time. I've been looking forward to this section of Job. It's going to be worth it, okay? This is the good part. This is when God finally shows up and he answers Job.
Yes.
So, just a quick little recap. Job it goes through this enormous test. God is the one. There's a conversation in the beginning. You can read the first two chapters. There's a conversation between Satan and God. And God poses the question to Satan when he says, I've been going around the earth just looking what I can get into, basically. I'm paraphrasing. And then God asks Satan, have you considered my servant Job? So God actually sets this up. He's not the one who is actually doing the destruction. It's Satan who causes the destruction. But he is the one who's allowing it for his purpose. And so Job is a righteous man, and his three friends come in to comfort him, and they just spend chapters into the majority of the book of Job is his friends saying, Job, just fess up because we know you've done something wrong. God is righteous, and so you must have done something wrong in order to deserve this. And so Job keeps saying over and over, I have searched, I can't think of anything. I've not done anything to deserve this. So after a while, he finally um, asked for a court with God. He's like, how can I have court with God? Because God is holy. He's on his holy throne. And I am but a man. How in the world am I going to have court with God? And he, in the midst of this, realizes that he needs a mediator, and there needs to be a mediator between God and man. That's one of the great purposes of this entire book, is the realization that we need a mediator between us and God, which of course is the Messiah. And so then at the end of the three friends, we see Elihu, who's the fourth friend, who kind of comes out of nowhere. And he is the youngest, but he is the one who sets up, he's sort of in a way a John the Baptist character, because he comes in with truth in a respectful way. He rebukes both Job and the three friends and tells them how they're all kind of wrong in the different ways that they're wrong. And he sets up the scene for God to come on the stage. Okay, so he kind of gets their heart prepared, which is something that we should pay attention to, the patterns of how God does that. He prepares the heart. So 38, we're going to be doing 38, 39, and maybe 40 if I remember right. Tonight's been, as you know, it's been a couple weeks. I don't even remember now. We've had these printed out for 2.5 weeks now. Okay, so we're going to start. This is where God comes on the scene, okay? And he is going to answer Job. So 38, verse 1. Then the Lord answered Job out of the whirlwind. Okay, so many times the Lord shows up in Scripture in a whirlwind or covered in clouds. And we see that a lot. The chariots of God that come and get Elijah, how it's covered in cloud cover, and in Revelation, cloud cover. The transfiguration, cloud cover. The reason for that is to protect the viewers, because if God were to appear in his complete glory, it would actually kill the people who view him. And we've talked in this room how anybody who has had even a small little vision of God, how you it's so it the power of just even a little bit of his presence really does make you feel like you're just like you're gonna die, like you just you cannot exist in that type of holiness.
My dream, it was clouds.
Clouds, yes. In the dream it was clouds. The cloud cover is for our protection. So God, the Lord answered Job out of the whirlwind and said, "Who is this that darkens counsel by words without knowledge? Now prepare yourself like a man, and I will question you, and you will answer me." So what in some versions, what it says, gird yourself up, and I will question you, and you will answer me. So what that means, gird your loins. In some translation says gird your loins. Men at the time, of course, would have robes. And so what in girding your loins would be if you were going into war, if you're about to enter a battle, or if you were about to have to run or enter a fight, you would tuck your robe into your belt. So that was girding up your loins so that you could get prepared for war. And so the verbiage of girding up your loins, the Lord is actually telling Job, get ready, gird up your loins, because you're about to, I can't even imagine. Those of us who've had a little snippet, it's like, the fear of this moment. He tells Job, prepare yourself like a man, for now I'm going to ask you the questions and you're going to answer me. Verse 4, where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? Tell me if you have understanding.
That's all it take for me.
I know. That's all it would take. The questions of science. Okay. The foundations of the earth. This whole chapter is basically science questions. It's dealing with science in general. There's some really cool discoveries in here. So this is the comment. Questions of science are supposed to be answered through observation. That's the laws, the tenets of science. You're supposed to be able to set up a experiment. Sorry, I think I couldn't find the word. An experiment and observe what happens. And you're supposed to be able to repeat it and observe it over and over. They're supposed to be answered through observation and repetition. None of us were there, right? None of us were there for the foundation of the earth. So it's reasonable to make conjectures, but our conjectures cannot be passed off as scientific fact. No one has solved the problem of origin because they can't explain the origin of information, data, DNA, the data sequence. I mean, everything, all creation it's formed through the information of DNA and such. That is the formation. DNA is a digital code, and the only possible source of code would be a designer. There's no way to unroll DNA as a code of information and not see that there has to be a designer for this. And when Darwin was around, they knew that there was such thing as a cell. They knew that there as a single cell had been observed, but they had no clue how complicated that single cell was. To them, all they knew was that it was a little blob of jelly. They didn't know anything else. But now we know that a single cell, you get the mitochondria and all of the different things of how it works. It's literally more complicated than the whole of New York City. It has like the trash, it has an irrigation system, and it has a trash system, and it has a way to produce food and energy and all of the things that a cell does. It's really crazy if you've ever seen like an animated model of it. Darwin had no answer for that because they didn't realize that existed at the time. Verse 5, who determined its measurements? Surely you know, or stretched out the line upon it, or to what were its foundations fashioned, or who laid its cornerstone? When the morning stars sang together and all the sons of God shouted for joy. Now, before I go into that, I've got to say since the astronauts just came back and landed, there was one astronaut, and I didn't see the entire thing, but one thing, it was a female, but what she said was that when they looked back to observe Earth, she said the thing that struck her more than just the observation of Earth was the blackness around it. She said the thing that struck her more was the blackness around it. The fact that it just was there. It was just there like a lifeboat. She said it was just like there like a lifeboat, and it was hanging on nothing. It was just the blackness around it, Pretty cool. And so I have to say that, it's like, yeah. So the sons of God, so this is the one, besides Genesis, this is one of the origins when we're going to parse out what this phrase means. Excuse me. Stars, all through Scripture, there are idioms that are used consistently throughout the entire Bible, all 66 books. Stars is one of them. Stars are often associated with angels in the Bible and elsewhere. So anytime you see stars, you can sometimes interchange angels, okay? Not trying to build theology on that. I'm just giving you some clues, okay? But the term sons of God in Hebrew is B'nai Elohim, or B'nai He Elohim. It always refers to a direct creation of God. It's the same phrase that's used in Genesis 6:4, John 1:11, and Luke 20:36. The same phrase. Genesis 6:4, we see, verse 4, there were giants on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God came to the daughters of men, and they bore children to them, those were the mighty men who were of old, men of renown. So that word, sons of God, came to the daughters of men. They bore children to them. They were the mighty men who were of old, men of renown. That's referring to a direct creation of God, or what we would casually call basically angels. In that case would be fallen angels. Fallen angels that would come and disobey God and do this, to produce the Nephilim, what becomes the giants, the Nephilim of the Old Testament. We won't go into that whole story. There's plenty online if you want to look it up. Then on John 1 says, but as many as received him, to them he gave the right to become children of God, to those who believe in his name, who were born not of blood, nor of the flesh, nor of the will of man, but of God. So John is saying here, to any who have received Christ, he gives the right to become children of God, direct creation of God. That means born again, meaning that old carnal flesh man dies, and you are born anew, a direct creation of God, spiritually a direct creation of God. Then in Luke 20, it says, Jesus answered and said to them, to the sons of this age, many are given in marriage, but those who are accounted worthy to attain that age and the resurrection from the dead, neither marry nor are given in marriage, nor can they die anymore, for they are equal to the angels and are sons of God, being sons of the resurrection. So direct creation of God. The resurrection, meaning Jesus being the firstborn. When he was I'm getting there.
Go ahead.
Oh, many, Jesus rose people from the dead while he was alive, right? We've heard, occasionally you hear of a story like that of someone being resurrected from the dead now. But they're resurrected from the dead in the flesh, but not the final resurrection. When Jesus was resurrected from his grave, it meant that he was the firstborn, the first fruits. That actually occurred on the Feast of First Fruits, where he was the firstborn of the dead, and he had the resurrected body that will never die, the eternal body, flesh and bone. He says flesh and bone, suggesting no blood, flesh and bone. Okay, and I don't know. That's it seems like, because the blood was poured out, but flesh and bone. And a new body that could transcend the laws of physics as we know them right now. Walk in and out of walls, translate through space and time, however that works. Okay. Verse 8. This is the Lord still speaking. Or who shut the sea with doors when it burst forth and issued from the womb? When I made the clouds its garment and thick darkness its swaddling band, when I fixed my limit for it and set bars and doors, when I said, "This far you may come, but no further, and here your proud waves must stop." Now, this is referring to probably the flood of Noah, because during the flood of Noah, the rain not only came from heaven, but it actually burst forth from the ground. So the waters actually burst forth from the ground, and the Lord fixed where it stopped, and fixed the boundaries of land. So water came from rain, but also came from the ground. Now, there's geological strata and fossil records all over the world that bear witness of this, that bear witness of a catastrophic flood. The oceans are now stable, but the Earth's isostatic boundaries prevent that kind of deluge from happening again. Because the Lord said, He promised, thou will never do that again, meaning a global flood. There's local floods, but not globally. So I put this in here just because I like this. We're not going to go. I mean, I could talk for hours about creation and Noah's flood because I love that subject, but that's not what we're going to do tonight. There's plenty of info online if you want to, but here there are this is an example. Polystrate trees fossilized in rock strata. So when you're in the elementary school and you learn that the strata of rock are dated by layer, like the deeper you go, the older the rock. It's actually not always the case. If you take, and I know homeschool kids did that a lot, you get like sand and rock and silt and different types of soil and water in like a mason jar, and you shake it up in a mason jar and then set it down and leave it alone. It takes, I don't know how long, a few weeks, but it will actually settle in layers, in strata. So yeah, it's not always the case. But when you're talking about dating fossils, this is one of the problems with dating fossils, is that all of these areas of science are they're specialized unto themselves. You have geologists, you have astrologists that study the stars. Excuse me. Then you have paleontologists that study the fossils, and they're in their own little place of study, their own little place of science, and they rely on each other to get in certain information from. So, in other words, a paleontologist will get, if there is a fossil, that they'll rely on what the geologist says as far as like where that layer of rock where they found this fossil. The geologist will tell them, oh, that layer of rock is 70 million years ago. Therefore, the paleontologist said this fossil is 70 million years old. Therefore, this guy is using this fossil to date something else. And it's like a circular reasoning. They're in their own little echo chamber, and they never quite get outside of that thought. They never quite break free of that to see that there could be catastrophes. It would stand to reason that if you're talking about billions of years, which is what the Darwin theory talks about, billions of years, and we're supposed to somehow just take for granted that inside of billions of years a catastrophe never happened that might have upset the order of events. There was never like a big enough asteroid hit, or a big enough flood, or a big enough change in the atmosphere that would have changed how things would have been dated. So anyway, this is the picture, and I know Dylan's good to put this up later in the YouTube. But these trees, they're fossilized trees that actually go through. It's not the only one. It's just one of many that show up this way, where they obviously are fossilized at one time, but they go through different many layers. So that's just one example where you can see that that's actually
almost like it was petrified.
almost like it was petrified at the same time, in the same time frame, and not at different, and not through millions of years. Have you verse 12, have you commanded the morning since your days began, and caused the dawn to know its place? The procession, this is the comment. The procession of the earth causes the sun to rise in a different place every day according to the seasons. Any variance in the rotation of the earth could render life impossible. Any variance in the rotation. So we have this rotation of the earth. If the earth were to rotate, would it slow down a little bit or speed up a little bit? It would literally cause a massive die-off. It would render life to the earth too hot or too cold if the rotation sped up or slowed down even a little bit. If the earth was closer or further from the sun, if it was a little closer or a little further, life would be impossible. The balance is perfect to support life. There are over 100 ratios that if they were changed, life would be impossible. Now we can't, obviously I'm not here to go over every bit of those. I'm just kind of hitting the highlights. But there's over 100 ratios that if they were changed, life would be impossible. All right, verse 13. That it might take hold of the ends of the earth and the wicked be shaken out of it. It takes on form like clay under a seal. It stands out like a garment. From the wicked, their light is withheld, and the upraised arm is broken. Okay, this has been a couple of weeks, y'all. Am I on the right? Hold on. I'm on the right. Thank you, Luke. You're very cute.
People use this one verse as a flat earth thing.
Which one?
Argument. That it might take hold of the ends of the earth and the wicked be shaken of it. It takes on form like clay under a seal. Like when you put a seal down and the edges come up around, so it would be flat, and then the edges would come up.
Those flat earth people talk about that.
Like flat earth Christians
so
use this verse like that.
I have had
that's a good argument.
In the right. They actually, okay, I will say, and I have not gone down. I have not gone down the trail of flat earth. I have not looked at the arguments, and I'll tell you why. I don't care.
I know.
It doesn't matter. You know what I'm saying? So people that are really, really stuck on this have gotten really hostile and caused a lot of dissension over it, and it just doesn't matter.
It really doesn't matter.
It just doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. Of all things to argue about, I'm glad you did. It's one of the flat earth. It doesn't matter to me. There's only one thing that matters, and that's not it. It's not the thing I'm going to die. It's not the hill I'm going to die on, you know. But anyway, I understand that they have their reasons. Okay.
Have you ever seen Whole Earth?
Verse 16 says, have you entered the springs of the sea, or have you walked in search of the depths? So here's a interesting note. There's a guy who's called the father of oceanography, and his name is Matthew Fontaine Maury. Okay, the father of oceanography. He read in Job in the Bible about the pathways of the sea. He read in the Bible about the pathways of the sea. And because of what he read in the Bible, he began mapping out the ocean currents. And after he joined the Navy, he was the first guy to do it. And he knew that they had to be there because of what the scripture said. The scripture talked about the pathways of the sea. No one knew before that there was actually currents. So he started mapping the currents in the Navy. And this discovery was built on his commitment from reading the scripture. He knew that they were there.
It takes one person to just notice one thing in the word that typically gets overlooked.
Yeah, that typically gets overlooked. So he knew they were there, and he ended up becoming the father of oceanography because he knew those currents were there because of scripture. 17. Have the gates of death been revealed to you? Or have you seen the doors of the shadow of death? Have you comprehended the breadth of the earth? Tell me if you know all this. This is God's talking to Job. Tell me if you know all this. Where is the way of the dwelling of light? Okay, here's a comment. The nature of light is still elusive. Is it a wave, a photon? Does it have non-locality? We'll talk about that in a second. We're finding out that reality has boundaries and the universe is finite and not infinite. So in math class, we learned the number line, right? You have the zero and it's supposed to be infinite. The concept goes infinitely in either direction, positive and negative. That's the concept. But what science has actually found out, particularly quantum science, quantum mathematics, has discovered that there's actually a limit both ends. There's a limit to the bigness of the universe, and there's a limit to the how infinite. And I'll give you an example. When you get to, your math teacher taught you that you could take a thing of string, in theory, and cut it in half, then take that and cut it in half. In theory, you could go on forever cutting it in half, forever and ever, infinitely. But that's actually not true. When you get to 10 to the minus 33 centimeters, that a particle that's that big, if you attempt to cut that particle in half, it will lose locality altogether, and it will suddenly have a potential to be anywhere in the universe at one time. And I can't understand that. I don't think that they understand that either. But that is actually true. There is a limit. And then if you try to divide a particle that is that small, it will lose locality and become everywhere at once. And that's crazy. And that's crazy. What it's suggesting is that the reality is digital. So we live in like a digital reality, meaning that if you've seen a low resolution photograph and it has all the little pixels, it looks pixelated, that's what it means. The 10 to the minus 33 centimeters is basically 1 pixel of reality, and it doesn't get any smaller than that. It means that this is actually somewhat of a hologram. And there were a couple, supposedly there were two mathematicians, and if I had gone a deeper dive into this, I would have named them. But there were 2 mathematicians that were part of during the discovery process of this, supposedly, that committed suicide because they couldn't deal with what they had discovered. They couldn't deal with what they were looking at. The fact that, wait, this is all just a hologram, and they couldn't, it drove them insane. It drove them insane what they were discovering. But that also is detailed in Scripture in Genesis. Because when we fell at the beginning in the Garden of Eden, when we fell, we were confined, almost like jail. We were confined in 4 dimensions. The 3 dimensions of space, and then the 4th is time. We know for certain that there's more dimensions that exist than that. But we cannot go in and back and forth into those dimensions. Now, there are people who attempt to breach into the interdimensional realm, and that is called witchcraft, and that is strictly forbidden in the Bible. And it's because there's veil. Remember in Genesis when it talks about the pathway back to Eden, and there's a seraphim or cherubim that guard the pathway back. There's a reason for that, because the Lord said no, lest they eat from the tree of life and therefore be separated forever from being able to be redeemed in order to live with God in eternity. Are y'all following everything I'm saying? Okay. So even the hologram, the digital creation can be explained because they're the boundaries, the veil that the Lord put in place to reality and said, here and no further. Do not breach past these walls. So when in through witchcraft, when people attempt to open the veil, open doorways, you can, but you're not supposed to. It's illegal because after you breach that doorway, we don't know what we're dealing with, and we're not prepared for what we're dealing with. And then you end up, those entities that you encounter there will drag you to hell. And that's what the Lord is trying to protect us from. He's trying to protect us from that. Okay. And darkness, where is its place? That you may take it to its territory, that you may know the path to its home. Do you know it because you were born then? He's being sarcastic in this line. If you were born then. Or because the number of your days is so great? Have you entered the treasury of snow? Or have you seen the treasury of hail? Which I have reserved for the time of trouble and for the day of battle and war. It's interesting that we see hailstones so often associated with battle in Scripture. We see it in Revelation, the hailfire and brimstone. We see it in Sodom and Gomorrah, hellfire and brimstone. The Lord, for whatever his reasons are, reserves it for war. And then we see this interesting thing in Joshua. In the Battle of Joshua, the Lord uses hailstones to strike only Joshua's enemies. So in hand-to-hand combat, the hailstones that come down strike only Joshua's enemies and not the Lord's army. Isn't that crazy? Dope. And yeah, it is dope.
Bread balls,
do what?
Not bread balls.
Not bread balls.
Not this time.
That's a whole other conversation before we turn this on. Okay, hailstones are also used in Exodus 9, Isaiah 30, Ezekiel 13, Haggai 2, and Revelation 16. In battle. Hailstones are used in battle. Don't know why. It's just the Lord's way. So he's asking, in his rebuke of Job, he's asking him, he's like, do you know where I keep these hailstones? Can you do that? Is basically what he's asking. Can you do that? Verse 24. Oh, that is really funny. She was copying you. She was literally copying exactly the way. Yes, the way you were crawling.
Oh, baby.
The dog. She's crawling through the living room. It's very sweet. I know. That was really cute. I wish I'd have gotten that on video. So sweet. Verse 24. By the way light is diffused, or the east wind scattered over the earth, who has divided a channel for the overflowing water, or the path for the thunderbolts? Okay, two concepts not present in the universe are infinity and randomness. Why that is there, I don't know. Anyway, the two...
Lightning seems random.
Thank you. Because lightning seems random, but now all the discoveries that they make with science is the fact that it's really not random. Verse 26. To cause it to rain on a land where there is no one, and a wilderness in which there is no man. The things that God does just because he decides to do it. Even when there is nothing. Places where there's absolutely nothing. Barren land. And he causes it to rain. Just for his own reasons. We don't know why. Here's another comment. Why are flowers beautiful? Or the depths of the ocean where there's no light. You know, when they attempt to discover the depths of the ocean, they go down there and they, with submarines, and then they shine a light around and they see that there's beauty. And there's the bioluminescence of the creatures down there, and there's actually beautiful foliage and flowers sometimes.
And how long was it there before it was ever discovered?
How long was it there, and why is it there? You have a question? What's your question?
I know how flowers are beautiful.
You know what? Why?
I know how flowers are beautiful.
Okay, how?
It's because when and
Yeah.
it just turns into a beautiful flower.
It does turn into a beautiful flower. You're right. It is right.
Oh,
You're very smart. You're very sweet. Okay, 27. To satisfy the desolate waste and to cause spring to spring forth and grow the growth of tender grass. Has the rain a father? Or who has begotten the drops of dew? From whose womb comes the ice? And the frost of heaven, who gives it birth? The waters harden like stone, and the surface of the deep is frozen. Okay, here's a comment. These are just interesting facts of science that he's touching on here. Most materials expand when heated and contract when cooled. Most things do, but not water. Water expands when frozen, and it does that in an arc, not linearly, which causes it to be able to float, which allows for the top to freeze and the fish underneath to still exist. Otherwise, they would die. They would be frozen solid and die. So you can have a top layer that's frozen in ice, and underneath there's still water going on. It's a way of preservation.
Water is the only thing that acts like that.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy? So the surface can freeze while allowing life to exist underneath. It's just
It
like
is
cool.
crazy.
And if
It is
water
crazy.
froze from the bottom up, it would be indefinitely frozen because the
Yeah.
just cold
Yeah.
density with cold things generally are lower.
Oh, that's
Like
true. The
icebergs
yeah,
must be frozen.
from the bottom up. Yeah, it would change the whole, and it would kill off all the life.
Kill everything.
Yeah, it would kill everything.
It would remain frozen.
Right. So the wisdom that God did this, and so when he's in his rebuke to Job, he's listing off all these things that in his wisdom he's done, and he's saying to Job, "How do you know how to do this? Do you know why? How all this is a way it's existed exactly this way? Can you replicate this?" Is basically what he's saying. Okay, now here we get into some cool stuff. Verse 31. Can you bind the cluster of the Pleiades or loose the belt of Orion? Okay, bind the cluster of Pleiades or loose the belt of Orion. Now, here's a fun fact. Fun fact. Most constellations, the constellations of stars are grouped together, and we see them and call, this cluster is this and this cluster is that, you know. But we know that majority of those stars are not they're not actually clustered together in space. It's just visually as we see them together from our point of view. Majority of them are not actually close together. We just see the light of them in the sky clustered close together. You guys understand that, right? However, there's two exceptions. Pleiades and Orion. The only constellations that actually are bound, gravitationally bound together. True. It's the only
That's
two
so
the
dope.
only two constellations.
That's the coolest fact in this thing.
It is very cool. It's a cool fact.
What do you
So
mean by that?
so the stars of the Pleiades and the stars of the Orion are actually close enough together to have a gravitational pull that affects each other
Like they're
on
bound
one another.
together. He said,
They're-
"Can you bind the cluster of Pleiades or loose the belt of Orion?" Saying that they have a gravitational pull. He's bound those stars together, and now it's proven.
Yeah.
Oh,
Like, how would they know that? How would Job know that? How would they know that? Okay.
Oh God.
So
There's no gravity in space like that too.
I'm not good at science.
Oh, you're not?
No.
No, she was just
I'm
asking
good at
how can
science.
stars have gravitational pull if there's no gravity in space?
Oh, they have mass. Anything with mass has
Has a
like
gravity.
yeah.
Like
Alright.
the moon is
Yeah.
held to
Get your
us
cap and
by
gown,
gravity.
Professor. 'Cause I don't know.
I'm
Right.
good at science.
You didn't pay attention to science class?
I don't think we learned anything like this.
Okay. Well, now you know. Now you know you're getting better.
Of course not. They wouldn't want you to.
Similar to like
Read
where
the Bible
the
and
Earth
then become
goes,
a
the moon
believer.
follows. because
Right.
It's bound to us by gravity. Same thing
I
with
made
the
my
sun
own
and us.
tornado.
That's what she just.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear y'all were whispering.
No, I
Side
was just saying,
conversation over there.
you know, y'all were on the same wavelength.
So it gets better. Okay, verse 32 says, "Can you bring out Mazaroth in its seasons, or can you guide the great bear with its cubs?" All right, now let me see who's got a pencil or something, a pencil like. Right
I
now?
have 2 pins right here.
Here.
Here, grab.
Okay, now,
I got
It's nowhere near you.
all right, it's okay, sweetie. It's all I need.
Astigmatism.
This right here. All right, this, we know that the Earth is on an axis. Do you remember that from science
Yes.
class?
Yeah, it's on an axis.
It's on an axis, and the axis is at a tilt. All right. Now, it's the Earth rotates. We know that. Okay, this is the rotation, day and night, 24 hours. But it also wobbles. Okay, so it's rotating, but while it's rotating, it also wobbles. Now, it actually takes, one wobble takes 26,000 years to complete. So it wobbles very slowly, but it wobbles like this. And so if you take this, I'm going to do it this way. And if you pretended that this is drawing a circle as it's doing 26,000 years, okay, you're seeing this is the precession of the equinox. And the precession of the equinox, that's where we get the Mazaroth. So that's where we get the constellations and the 12, because there's more than the 12. But that's where we get it from, okay? So they're in the sky, so the precession of the equinox. Do you follow me?
Yes.
And it takes a year.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Okay, so here you go, Dylan.
Oh,
All right. But here, you ready? So the Mazaroth is actually the 12 constellations that today people call them the what do they call them? The why can't I think of words?
I'm sorry.
The 12 constellations, the 12 signs, Zodiac. Thank you, Zodiac. I couldn't find that name in my head.
I couldn't process the question.
It's all good. It's all good. So the Hebrew term is Mazaroth. Now it is a bastardized term, which has been perverted, and now it's called the zodiac signs. There was an original that is traced back to Babylon, before Babylon, the Tower of Babel. Okay, the Tower of Babel, when everything was divided and the languages and people scattered and everything became divided at that point. Before that happened, it was the Mazaroth. And this, can you bring out the Mazaroth in its seasons? And can you guide the great bear with its cubs? That's one of the constellations. All right, the Mazaroth is a Hebrew term for what we now call the zodiac. See, if I'd have read my own note, I would have remembered that word. The sun has a path through the sky throughout the year called the ecliptic. 15 degrees on either side of that is a band with 12 groups of stars that have names that seem to go back to the Tower of Babel. The Mazaroth originally told the story of God's plan of redemption. When Abraham was told to look at the stars and count them if he could. Now, you remember when God gave the covenant to Abraham, when he declared to Abraham that from his seed, from his lineage was going to come the Messiah. That's the covenant with Abraham. I've heard some other crazy things lately. I won't even go into it, but that's not what the covenant was about. The covenant with Abraham was that from his lineage would come the Redeemer of man. His seed line would be the Messiah. So, but he tells Abraham, count them, look at the stars, count them if you can. He was actually being told to name the stars. And from the constellations, they were to be named from the brightest to the dimmest. And there are entire books that have been written on this. It's really cool. What I'm going to give you is literally chapter titles of what you can write whole books about. So, but here's the highlight, okay? And it's a really cool study. There's all kinds of interesting, cool things about scripture in it. Thereby, he was given the promise of the Messiah coming from his lineage through which that would bless the entire world. So when God was telling Abraham to count the stars and name them, when he was going through and naming the stars from the brightest to the dimmest, and go to the next one, from the brightest to the dimmest, it's telling a story, and it was telling the story of the coming Messiah. So it didn't come out of nowhere. God is like revealing this. So here are just the highlights. Here's the highlights. Virgo, number 1, Virgo, what we call today Virgo. Okay, I'm telling you that what we call the zodiac Virgo was originally the Virgin. Okay, it was been bastardized to be Virgo. It was originally the Virgin. The seed of the woman shall come. The Virgo, there's a whole thing, there's a whole study about the Virgo holding the wheat stalk of wheat and the corn. It's a whole thing, okay, but I'm not, for the sake of time. The seed of the woman shall come. Number 2, Libra. There shall be a price paid by him for a purchased possession. Number 3, Scorpio. The price shall be a conflict with the serpent foe and the wound with the conqueror's heel. These are the original meanings of these constellations. Number 4, Sagittarius. He shall be sent forth swiftly, surely as an arrow from a bow. Number 5, Capricorn. He shall be as slain as a sacrifice. Number 6, Aquarius. He shall rise again and pour out blessings on his people. Number 7, Pisces. His people shall be multitudes and held in union with each other and himself. Number 8, Aries. He who was slain, whose heel was bruised, shall rule and shall tread his enemy underfoot. Number 9, Taurus. He shall come in with power, triumphant, and have dominion. Number 10, Gemini. He shall be the Son of God and the Son of Man, the victim and the ruler. Remember how Gemini is the twins? It's the duality. Number 11, Cancer. He shall hold fast his purchased possession, the reward of his work. And number 12, Leo the lion. He shall finally put all enemies under his feet, coming with 10,000s of his saints to execute judgment upon all, separating the evil from the good.
Where do you find all this?
There's literally been books written on this. Literally been books written on the original Hebrew Mazzaroth. It's not out of thin air. There's actually, archaeological study that can be done. Yes?
If Jesus didn't separate the evil and the good, then the evil would just do bad stuff in front of the good, and then the good would just do good stuff in front of evil. So that's why he's separated.
That's true. That's why he separated them. I love you, Luke. I'm glad you're paying attention. So, yeah, there's literally books written on it, and it's an interesting study. But those are just like I wanted to give it, since it comes from this book, this chapter of Job, I wanted to give you guys sort of the highlights. It was the gospel told in the stars. That's the highlight of it. And like I said, you can go through each star in the constellation, and there's more to the story. There's more to the in-depth. The 12 constellations actually also correlate with the 12 tribes of Judah. There's a whole study that you can do on that too. But it all so when Abraham was counting the stars, he was reciting a story that the Lord was telling him was going to happen with the Messiah.
And
it became distorted, yeah, and adopted by pagan ideology and mythology, and then it became something else.
In the same way they started worshiping the golden serpent that they were supposed to look at.
Yes.
And that became an idol.
And it becomes about what? It becomes about me.
Yeah.
It becomes about me.
Yeah.
That is what this whole lesson of Job is coming back to. That's the original temptation of Adam and Eve in the serpent in the garden.
Yeah.
Is you can be your own God. You can do what you want. If you eat that fruit, you can be like God. Just be your own God and do what you want. It becomes about me. That's the temptation. And good grief. this culture is so far off from plumb line that it doesn't even, like, it's hard to even communicate that to people. It's hard to even communicate that. All right, now, hold on. Oh, excuse me.
Anybody else looking for their sign, or was that just me?
I looked.
I know.
Oh, I did too. I
I
did
know
too.
what mine is, but
I was like,
Mhm.
I had some guy be like, "What's your super sign?" I'm like, "I don't know."
Super sign.
I don't know.
I don't know what
Someone
that
asked
even
me
means.
what my sign was, and I just acted like I didn't hear them.
Nuh-uh, I thought you said it was the cross.
You know what we should do?
No, I have done that before, but the other day it was a lady at my work. I just acted like I didn't hear her.
So next
So I was like,
time,
this is not-
if you do a little study on your own sign, you can say, "This is my sign, and this is the originally what it means. It means this."
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess it depends on the the time. Do what?
No, I'm not doing that.
Okay, 33. Do you know the ordinances of the heavens? Can you set their dominion over the earth? Can you lift up your voice to the clouds, that an abundance of water may cover you? Can you send out lightnings that they may go and say to you, Here we are. Sorry. Who has put wisdom in the mind, or who has given understanding to the heart? Who can number the clouds by wisdom, or who can pour out the bottles of heaven? When the dust hardens in clumps and the clods clean together, can you hunt the prey for the lion, or satisfy the appetite of the young lions? When they crouch in their dens or lurk in their lairs to lie in wait, who provides food for the raven when its young ones cry to God and wander about for lack of food? Do you know the time when the wild mountain goats bear young? Can you mark when the deer gives birth? Can you number the months that they fulfill, or do you know the time when they bear young? They bow down and they bring forth their young. They deliver their offspring. Their young ones are healthy and they grow strong with grain. They depart and do not return to them. So even just that alone, the Lord is saying, do you know when the deer is supposed to give birth to the young? Do you know when the mountain goat? Can you mark out the months of the conception of these animals? Can you see to the gestational period for these? Those who have had kids, or if I know you went full term go into labor, that's not something like, that's just something that the Lord in his wisdom has set forth to do. That's not something that we devise ourselves, or that we even know. Women don't even know the time of their conception. It's like it happens without our knowledge. You have to take a pee test to even find out if you are pregnant. You know what I'm saying? It happens without our knowledge, and the time of fulfillment happens without our knowledge too. So you go into labor, and it's God's timing, and he's the one who sets forth the time, and it's in his wisdom. So for him to do this, the one thing the book of Romans says, no man will be without excuse. No one will stand before God and say, I didn't know there was a God. No man. All you have to do is look around at nature. And anybody who has been a part of having kids, I do not understand how anyone cannot believe in God. It's beyond reason. It's beyond reason. And the Lord knows it's beyond reason. And if we're honest with ourselves, we all know it's beyond reason. Verse 5. Who set the wild donkey free? Who loosed the bonds of the onager? I don't even know what that is. Whose home I have made in the wilderness, and the barren land in his dwelling. He scorns the tumult of the city, and he does not heed the shouts of the driver. The range of the mountains is his pasture, and he searches after every green thing. Will the wild ox be willing to serve you? Will he bed by your manger?
An onager is like a wild donkey.
A wild donkey. Thank you. I love this line. Will the wild ox be willing to serve you, or will he bed by your manger? Isn't that the greatest?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's great.
Isn't that the greatest? In the book of Job, the oldest text in the Bible. Wow. It just gives me chills to think about it.
Foreshadowing.
The foreshadowing. Can you bind the wild ox in the furrow with ropes, or will he plow the valleys behind you? Will you trust him because his strength is great, or will you leave your labor to him? Will you trust him to bring home your grain and gather it to your threshing floor? The wings of the ostrich wave proudly, but her wings and pinions are like the kindly stork's. For she leaves her eggs on the ground and warms them in the dust. She forgets that a foot may crush them, or that a wild beast may break them. She treats her young harshly, as though they were not hers. Her labor is in vain without concern, because God deprived her of wisdom and did not endow her with understanding. But when she lifts herself on high, she scorns the horse and its rider. Sorry, it's hard to get through the poetry again. But basically what he's saying is just because he's God and he decided to, he deprived the ostrich of wisdom. She doesn't even understand. She lays her eggs on the ground and just walks off and leaves them. Like she doesn't even understand, has no understanding.
Faster than a horse.
But faster than a horse. For no other reason than because. Just because.
Yeah, ostriches know where their eggs are, and they recognize their eggs, even though some animals take them and then just put them like in hundreds of eggs.
Exactly.
Oh,
She
really?
leaves them out. She leaves them out for anybody could take them. So this is the note. An ostrich can outrun a horse, but has no wisdom to care for her young. God attributes both of these qualities as those he deliberately gave her for his own reasons. We don't know why. But he takes, even the fact that she's foolish, he says, I did that on purpose. Don't know why. He didn't give a reason. He just did. Have you given the horse strength? Have you clothed his neck with thunder? Can you frighten him like a locust? His majestic snorting strikes terror. He paws in the valley and rejoices in his strength. He gallops into the clash of arms. He mocks at fear and is not frightened, nor does he turn back from the sword. The quiver rattles against him, the glittering spear and javelin. He devours the distance with fierceness and rage, nor does he come to a halt because the trumpet has sounded. At the blast of the trumpet, he says, aha! He smells the battle from afar, the thunder of captains and shouting. So he's basically saying that it's just the poetry of going on about the strength of the horse. He's like, I did that. That the horse loves the battle. The horse loves to go the competition of that.
And he created it for men.
For
They're
men.
gonna ride these. He's like
Into battle. Into battle.
Wow.
Does the hawk fly by your wisdom? She is so cute. And spread its wings towards the south? Does the eagle mount up at your command and make its nest on high? On the rock it dwells and resides, on the crag of the rock and the stronghold. From there it spies out prey. Its eyes observe from afar. Its young ones suck up blood, and where its slain are, there it is. Where the slain are, there it is. Meaning it can see it. It can see it from way up top of the crags of the mountains. It knows and goes directly to it. And you can go on and on about how it is that birds navigate. I learned about, there's one little golden bird, I forget the name of it, it migrates from Alaska to Hawaii. And it's a small little bird, and there's no islands between, and there's no visual. As far as I know, no science can explain how it navigates that flight with no island to stop, because there's no place for it to rest, and scientifically it can't do it. Scientifically it doesn't have the energy for it. But that little bird flies in formation, like the geese do. They fly in formation so that they reserve energy stores. And there's no, but how do they know where to go from, and how do they get there all the way from Alaska to Hawaii every year? It defies explanation.
It's the wisdom God gives.
The wisdom, God gave that creature that path, that flight, for his reasons, and nobody can explain it. Nobody knows how or why. And the monarch butterfly does the same thing. There's a lot of birds and insects that go by this path, and we can't explain it. It's so interesting that men are so prideful
To think it's all happenstance. Each and every single
yes
creature with that kind of design.
Right.
How?
Right. How? It's beyond our
And
explanation.
everything being different.
Yes.
Because monarchs will migrate like this way this year, and then that way the next year, and like it's not the same, and as the birds do it, like
Right.
circle everything. I don't know.
Right.
Migrations are different for different creatures.
For different creatures, yeah. It really defies
Just
any
that
kind
by
of.
itself is.
And where did that information come from? Where did that wisdom come from?
Mhm.
There's no, you can't explain. Darwin doesn't explain that.
No.
You can't explain that. Chapter 40. Moreover, the Lord said answered Job and said, shall the one who contends with the Almighty correct him? He who rebukes God, let him answer it. This is Job's response to God. Then Job answered the Lord and said, behold, I am vile. What shall I answer you? I lay my hand over my mouth. Once I have spoken, but I will not answer. Yes, twice, but I will proceed no further. Then the Lord answered Job out of the whirlwind and said, now prepare yourself like a man. I will question you, and you will answer me. Would you indeed annul my judgment? So God's not done. Even though Job said, he says, uncle, like I am vile. I have no place to talk. I am, but God's not done. Now prepare yourself like a man. I will question you, and you shall answer me. Would you indeed annul my judgment? Would you condemn me that you may be justified? Have you an arm like God, or can you thunder with a voice like his? Then adorn yourself with majesty and splendor, and array yourself with glory and beauty. Disperse the rage of your wrath. Look on everyone who is proud and humble him. Look on everyone who is proud and bring him low. Tread down the wicked in their place and hide them in the dust together. Bind their faces in hidden darkness. Then I will also confess to you that your own right hand can save you. So that's the end of that. But this is the comment. God is saying, how would you handle the proud of the earth? So he's asking Job, how would you do it? If you have all the answers, you tell me, what would you do with the wicked? Tell me. Or if you can, then could you handle your own problems that you previously claimed? You're still mad, aren't you?
Wait, God's not done answering Job.
No, he's not done. He's going on for a few more chapters. And so we have a couple of more. Because the reason we're waiting and stretching it out, well, one reason is God. Because we hadn't even gotten to the dinosaurs yet. We haven't even gotten to the dinosaurs and the dragons. We're getting there. But this is worth its own lesson, because it's so cool. The scientific things that the Lord reveals to Job here, that according to modern wisdom, in air quotes, they shouldn't have known then. They shouldn't have known then. I had so many more thoughts. I had so many thoughts going through my mind in the last 2 weeks leading up to today. And for some reason, they all escape me now. And it must be for God's own purpose that they all escape me now. But the end of the matter is that the fact that the beginning of wisdom, not the end. There's so many arguments, and there's so many people that are up in arms, and especially if you're on social media, that just pound and pound and pound away at, I'm right about this and you're wrong about that, and there's so many of these arguments, and
it's foolishness.
It's vast majority is foolishness.
Can I say something?
Yeah, say something. Say it.
The fear of God is the beginning of wisdom, and God this whole time is like, where are the storehouses?
Yeah.
How did I do it? Can you do it? It's asking questions about these things, and him realizing he cannot answer any of them. Right. He has no wisdom at all. Yes. And so he says, and then he's afraid. Yes. That's how he even gets the answer. Yes. Of any of them. The beginning of wisdom starts at fearing the one who has the answer. Fearing the one who has the answer. Okay, Luke.
In a couple chapters, when God is done answering Job, what if he gets like what God is like what if he gets what God's trying to say?
If he gets what?
Will he understand
God?
God's
That's what he's asking.
Will he understand?
Yes, he will.
Will God understand, or will Job? Will he understand God's wisdom? That's a really good question, Luke. I wonder if you'll stick around to find out. A little bit.
Some things.
The main thing.
We can find out.
The main thing that he's finding out is that he doesn't know what God knows. That is the beginning of wisdom, is understanding that you know nothing and that God knows. Yes. You want to pray? I love you. We will pray. You're so cute. But there was in this room, they know this story, but I had a dream that was one of those God dreams, and there's very, very few in my life. I can count on probably one hand a dream that I can say is an encounter with God. And in the one that I had that was the most similar to this one is the Lord took me up, and I was flying or looking at mountains. I was flying among the mountains with hummingbirds, and it was a similar thing of knowing. The Lord was telling me at the time that the things that he was letting me see was for the purpose that it would be him that got the glory and not me. And that's the whole purpose, was that so that people would see. I mean, that's why he reveals things to the foolish, is to shame the wise. He reveals things to the foolish to shame the wise, so that there's no other explanation for it except God. That's why on the day of Pentecost, when the people who heard Peter, a fisherman, preaching, and they said, these are unschooled men. These are regular, unschooled, unlearned men. But they knew that they had been with Christ. And that was their credibility, is that the Holy Spirit was speaking through them, and it gave them credibility. It gave credibility to what the crowd was seeing. The fact that they didn't know anything. We think that if we go to seminary and we complete all these Bible courses, and we have all this learning and knowledge, that we're doing a favor for God, and that it will give us credibility, and maybe people will come around and follow and listen to us. But the whole point is to give the glory to God and not to us. That's the whole point. I had a lot more eloquent things that I thought about all throughout the week, but they escaped me now. That's okay. So I'll probably think of some more things between now and next week, but we have more to go. Any more questions for that? I hope that was good for everybody.
Yeah.
Okay, ready?
Yes.
Till next week. We are actually going to meet next week. We just took a break because of Easter. Ready? Love, love, love.